And I'm live! Welcome to the Dazed, Confused, and Educated show. It's not really a show. So, welcome to Dazed, Confused, and Educated. It's more of a podcast, and I feel like podcasts have like a theme, and mine really doesn't. This is the intro, so like my first one. So I feel like I really should just do like a little live video on explaining what I'm doing, kind of how I'm doing it, why I'm doing it, and yeah. So basically, I look at this more as like an online journal. I guess that'd be a good way to look at it. Not a journal where I'm going to pour out my feelings and cry and talk about why I feel I'm not loved because my mom held me too long, or my mom didn't hold me enough. Pick your cliche. I stole that from a movie. Forgot what movie it was, but it was a great line. Con Air. That was a movie, I'm pretty sure. Anyways, but I'm a senior in college right now, about to graduate probably this summer, August, and I want to just kind of document my thoughts. In the bio is just a 3 paragraph rant slash me like just not ranting, but me not making much sense, just not rumbling, but bumbling through my words and like talking and listing different things I like and talk about. And basically that's probably how 95% of these videos are going to go and the actual video will go. I just want to sit down once a week, hopefully that's what my goal is, and shoot one of these live, non-edited videos. So, as in the bio states, one day, hopefully when I have kids, they'll be like, hey dad, what were you like in college? And I'll be like, hey kids. Well, hopefully they'll be of age, because some of these might get non-PG-13. And just be like, okay, here kids, and log into this bad boy and be like, here's like me, 2 semesters out from graduating college. Have at it. They'll probably be like, oh, you were really boring, or hopefully, dang dad, you were cool. Probably the first one. Hopefully the second one. But yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to do. These are really interesting times. As Joe Rogan says, the king of podcasts, strange times, his comedy special. But it really is. And it's one thing, you see all these adults who grew up in a very traditional, custom upbringing, and being a millennial and getting my own version and take on it, and you just kind of see how you're like the gum of society, and everybody's like, oh, millennials ruined XYZ, and you can just list it. There's headlines like that all the time. I feel like we have a very unique take on what's going on because I'm used to having computers, iPhones, smartphones, all this stuff that at the touch of a button gives me information. I can do so much more than my grandparents did at my age. And also socially, things are just so crazy and wacky that it'll be interesting to see me document it now and see what it's like when I'm really old. Also, I like politics, but I would never say I'm into politics because there's kids I know who are like, they're into politics. They are very, hey, I'm on this side and I campaign for my guy. Midterms just happened with Florida, recount city right now. Who knows what's gonna happen? And the kids who who are into politics, like I know one friend who went out when door knock, was part of the campaign, got to meet one of the candidates, was in his like campaign party or group or something like that. Oh, my computer's right here. Once in a while, I have articles I need to search something if I forget about it that I find interesting to talk about. But yeah, that I might from time to time, probably more often than that, bring something in politics that I think's not being talked about enough, or I have like an interesting opinion on, or how I feel about something. Because I feel like nowadays there's the truth, and then there's the Democrat truth, the Republican truth, and then there's more the truth. I feel like the truth you kind of have to think about, but thinking is a hard thing to come by nowadays. I'm already kind of ranting, and yeah, so I apologize. Not really. This is kind of the point. But the name, Dazed, Confused, and Educated. Why Dazed and Confused? Alright, it's a classic movie from the 90s. I really enjoyed it when I watched. I'm not that big of a druggie. Don't really do them. I have once in a while, but haven't done it in forever. By drugs, I mean like marijuana, and by that like 6 times? Maybe 5. Maybe on one hand I can count it. I don't know. But not my thing, not against it, not really for it. Just, it's there. maybe in the future I'll get more into it or whatnot. I can't really get less into it as I am now. But the reason it's smoking like a, you could say, a marijuana or a cigarette, and the logo, which is right there, is it was really fitting for the movie, and the first word in my like podcast title, Dazed, Confused, and Educated, is Dazed. I'm a senior at Florida State, baby. Go Noles. And it's funny. This it is a big party school, and big party schools, drinking and drugs go hand in hand. So it was fitting for the title of the movie, fitting for my stage in life. Wow, that's trippy. You can see my hand in the mirror right there. But just fitting, so I threw that in there, and it looked kind of cool with the brain smoking and walking. Confused? Gosh. I tried this is my second take of the intro. These are all live. I said there'd be no editing. That was kind of a lie because I was like 18 minutes in, and I had rambled about a lot, which is kind of a little excessive. And I said my full name. My name is Tommy. I have no problem saying that. It's such a common name, and there's so many Tommies at FSU I've bumped into. Have fun trying to find me if you're a creep out there. But maybe if this thing takes off, then everybody will know my name, so it doesn't really matter. But I said it like, oh yeah, Tommy, and I was like, oh, I just said my name, and I was like, oh, time to end this and delete this too. But so this is take 2. So yeah. But confused. I went on one of those big rants, and one of it was about like knowledge and education, and to see like, I'm a real estate and finance major, so things don't change too much in that industry. It's kind of learning a set of skills and learning valuation of like assets, whether it be real estate or like a financial asset, stock, bonds, so forth. But other things like biology, chemistry, computer science. I remember my grandfather would show me these things about like knowledge and how it's changed just throughout the recent couple of years. How like what we learned in 2017 is this big. It's halfway through 2018 and we know this much. And at the point, like, it gave me a lot of stats and statistics. I haven't watched it recently, and by the time 2019 happens, it'll be the same thing. It's just that we're learning at such a rate, and it's so fast that what you learned 2 years ago is outdated. And that's scary being a college student, especially if you're a computer science major or more of a doctor. I mean, you just spent 4 years. Let's just say you didn't go to grad school and you didn't want to be a doctor and, going to med school and all that. Just say you did 4 years. You started at year 0 to 4. Oh my God, what you learned is outdated. And you just spent how much money? You dorm, food, living, tuition, like all this hustle, all this time. You put all that for textbooks. You graduate and then you get your job and it's like, oh no, that's outdated. And that's a better situation if your job is up to par on the information. I was thinking about it. How does it feel to be a kid coming into your first job and you learn these 4 years of education and you've got this 4-year like amount of knowledge, this knowledge right here, weird way to put it in a hand like gesture, but the guy you're working with has been doing this for 10 years and he is set in his ways. He's got a name for himself, he's marketed, he's big in the community, typical shoo-ha. And you say, oh, that's interesting. When we were at FSU, they taught us this was the way to do it. He's like, oh, no, son, there is an education and then there's knowledge in the real world, or vice versa. That's very true in a lot of industries. But medicine and computer science, I don't know. The newest stuff, which college kids would probably have a better shot of learning than someone who's been in the industry 10 years trying to run a business. It's hard to run that business and also keep the stuff with what's being taught. And so then you have this like crosswords like, well, this guy's made a lot of money and he's known and he's doing really good, so maybe this is the way you do it. But maybe you learn it in college a much more efficient and better, proper way, but you abandon what you learned because you've got this guy who's stubborn and hasn't kept up to date with what he knows. And so now you're doing things old. And so, like, I think that, to me, is just crazy. And I always think about, like, they thought the world was flat and, like, the center of the universe. And they used to kill, like, hang, like, flog Game of Thrones, and, like, fillet, also Game of Thrones. I'm watching Game of Thrones now. I'm way behind, but binge watching it almost to end of season 7. And so that's why those references are popping up. But they did all that stuff back in the day for people who made new discoveries. And we look back at them and we're like, oh, how stupid could you be? You thought the world was the center of the universe and it was also flat. You're stupid. And in 100 years, they're going to look back at what we taught and they're going to say, oh my God, look how stupid these guys are. They thought this was true when it was really this. And it's just like, I don't think a lot of people think like that. I think that's growing more now. Because with technology and ideas are being able to pass. And I feel like philosophy and ethics, two subjects I loved when I went to community college. You know, a little interesting route in college. We might hear about that more in later episodes or rants. But I think that... Okay, we're back. You're live. Huh. My mother called me. I might have to put these on airplane mode from now on. Or do not disturb. I wonder if that conversation got recorded in, but nothing too crazy. I lied. I said I was studying, but I'm doing this. But that's what I think people don't think much about. They think what we know... I mean, we do know a lot more than we did back in the day. We're going to know even much more and more time, and they're going to look back at us like we're retards as we look back on them and think they're stupid. And so that concept put down in a nutshell is why I put Dazed and Confused. Yeah, it's a movie title, but it's also fitting for somewhat how I feel like. You get out there and you're confused. You don't know what to trust, really, what you learned in school versus what to trust what an outdated business owner is teaching you. Also, information with fake news. Oh my gosh, fake news. Our boy Donald Trump. I'm conservative, and I'd say I'm more on like that side of the spectrum. But I'm not a complete dummy. Like, not dummy, but those people who just, oh, if there's an R by their name, I'm voting R. If it's a D by the name, I'm voting... No, this past election, I voted for a Democrat in the position, and, you know... So it's not like I'm just, oh, this is the way. And some people are infatuated with Donald Trump. Yeah, the economy's doing great. There's no real way looking around that. Don't look at unemployment. They take a lot of numbers, people who are unemployed out of that. Look at jobless claims. I had a really good teacher who told me jobless claims are how many people are asking for money for the government because they can't get jobs. You can't really throw out unemployment. You can mess that number up and make it look good or bad depending on basically how you want it to look. With people who are unemployed but not searching for work, they don't get counted as unemployed, but they're unemployed. Anyways, with fake news, it's so interesting. With the news, you've got Fox, CNN, NBC, and you got Fox, really conservative, and then you've got liberal CNN, MNSBC. You know what I mean? Can't ever say their name. And to see who owns those, like, people don't think, like, who is on their board? Are people on both? Like, I think information... I had an ethics teacher said it's not that you don't have choices, it's that you have the illusion of choices. And I thought that was really interesting when you look at Confused with fake news, that term being thrown around on everything. You could say, oh, that's fake news, the business owner who's using old information. He doesn't think it's fake, it's just outdated. Fake news has a very negative condensation to it. And I don't think he should be, in some sense, he should be faulted for it. It's just people are so egotistical, for lack of a better word, that's kind of too strong here, to like stay or don't have enough effort to or energy or time to stay up to date on what this is the best available way, information, procedures on how we should do things. So they just shoot down what potentially could be better. Like, I had a family member who said, oh, this crap about milk, who they're saying milk is bad for you, oh, that's just a bunch of hippy-dippy hippies who don't want hippy-dippy hippies, who don't want to, drink milk. Milk is great for you. Make strong bones. And then you look at some research that says it has nothing to do with calcium. That was all BS. Milk is for cows to grow to 1,000 pounds. I don't want to be 1,000 pounds. Sorry. But you've got this guy who's thinking, no, this is the way it was, and so I'm not changing. And that, in a nutshell, I feel it could be applied to so much. And so it's just like, I could sit and just probably for like an hour tell stories about people like rejecting something that nowadays I'm like, no, this is pretty true. Look at the evidence and facts, but they're just unwilling to change their belief. I think a lot of it has to do with pride and, traditions are cool. I like traditions. I'm not like against doing like Thanksgiving because Columbus did some fucked up things. Overall, I think America's done some amazing things. Kind of patriotic, but at the same time not. We'll probably get a lot more into that. But not this one. But I'm drinking, by the way, cognac and lemonade. It looks like piss, but I'm not the dodgeball guy from Dodgeball who... I drink my piss because I like to taste. You know that guy in the wheelchair? Dodgeball reference. But yeah. That's why Confused in there. Also part of the name tag, or the title. And educated, if you can put it together. I don't want to come off cocky like, oh, I'm educated. Here's my college hat, my college degree. No, none of that. It's more that I do feel like I'm somewhat educated. I'm getting 2 degrees. My parents own a small business, so I see a little bit more in that aspect. I really like going, like, list. I would rather sit down and have a conversation with someone than go out and get drunk and like do a bunch of like smoke a bunch of weed and like the next day just feel horrible. I'd rather let's have a couple drinks and sit here and talk, and I think that's great. From time to time, oddly, I am going out to a bar tonight with my friends. So, but this is the first time in like a while. Need to enjoy my college a little bit more too. But educated because I feel like I'm educated, but the two things, dazed and confused, with people like destroying their education, going to college, doing a bunch of drugs, partying, getting in majors that that are something that's easily learnable, not easily, but something that you can get an idea of, like accounting and finance. Pretty good bets. Make a lot of money straight out. The growth from it sometimes harder. But like it's a skill that you have learned that can be applied to if you want to own a music store video. Like if you want to do accounting and like get a music minor, like that'd be great. Like say music is your passion. Well, you could on the weekend fucking play music and do all that stuff. But if you want to own your music school or store, you need to know how to be an accountant and run and see how taxes and all that work. That's beautiful. I just don't like the kids who, theater, and that's the only thing they do. Like, no, if you have a passion for theater, God bless you. Go off and chase that. But also have, like, a much more, like, hey, this is what's going to pay the bills till that happens. And I think a lot of people kind of miss that concept, and they, I don't say waste their college, but they don't get the money value or they don't get the bang for their buck playing for college, because college is expensive. Ugh. Cognac and lemonade. Ooh, it tastes so good. Funny story, cognac, very expensive. I'm balling in college on a budget. I mean, this little mirror right here is from like Walmart. As you can see, it's pretty flimsy. But cognac, I went to my high school football game and I went down there. I was like, I'll come down a weekend, mom and dad, and we went and hung out. And I went, and they were having like a raffle, and one of them was a handle of cognac, 4 Cuban cigars, and 4 golfing passes. So I go down, I was like, I'll throw $10 in it, like, whatever. Oddly, I know I'm good friends with the family and the cheerleader coach who was holding the raffle, and I was like, hey, I better win. She's like, okay, honey. And then she was like, there's no way I'll pick you because, like, I'm doing it fair. And I was like, all right, that's fair. I don't really care. And so then Hurricane Michael comes up and comes through the Panhandle and destroys Florida. So I book it. I go home. I'm not trying to, like, live here with no power. The power system in Tallahassee, the power lines, they get knocked down in the small storms. It's horrible. So I go home that weekend, and it's another home football game. So I was like, screw it, I'll go. Excuse me. And I won. And so I've been drinking cognac a decent amount now until it's basically gone and I don't have to pay for it again. So don't think I'm like balling with these like nice handles of cognac and like I don't even know a lot of top shelf liquor. But yeah, I gave the golfing to my parents because I golf once in a while, but they'd have much more use and fun out of it. I did keep them Cuban cigars though. So yeah, that explains Dazed, Confused, and Educated. The logo is right here, right next to the lobster, because one of my goals is one day on a boat, go down to mini season in the Keys, go lobstering, limit out, grill them up, cook, eat, get some fishing in, do a little snorkeling. Oh, perfect. But so yeah, it is right at 20 minutes. Not a bad stopping point. A quarter of an hour. Yeah, no, a third of an hour. Great finance students, really good with numbers and fractions. Just kidding. But yeah, so probably in the future, and it's funny, like right now I'm just expressing and my thoughts and feelings for what this podcast is going to be like upcoming, but there's so many things I could sit here and talk about. I went, in my bio, I do yoga. If you read, I bet no one read it, but I have no followers, no subscribers, no viewers right now, so Tommy, in your bio that you put, you do yoga. I haven't gone in such a long time. I went on Wednesday, yesterday, a great time. And I'm in Tallahassee. Like, yoga, if you're not familiar with, is a like a very peaceful, relaxing, calming thing. There's a shooting at a yoga studio last weekend, and that's when I was like, I need to get back in there. Most people would be like, what? There was just a shooting at a yoga studio. It wasn't the one I go to, but I was like, some really great things have happened in that studio. It's much more the like relaxing, meditative, like inner like finding oneself type of like, I'm doing a bad job explaining it. But that's much more what the yoga studio I go to is like. It's not the hot yoga classes where you sweat and you're trying to burn off the calories and you show up in your Lululemon like tights and your hot yoga class and posting on the gram and all that. It's not like that. But I love the place I go to yoga, and I need to go there more often. Anyways, last week had a great experience. Like, I could sit there, I could talk about just about how amazing that one class was. Also, like I said, I am into politics. Midterm elections in Florida with the recount, with how close it is, and a couple of the key races. Like, if you're not familiar with the giant South Florida, like, debacle with red tide and Lake Okeechobee and like commercial farming and toxic algae, I could sit here and talk to you, not like a scientist, but bitch and moan about how bad that has been. A lot of gun control. There was a shooting at that yoga studio. There was a shooting today or yesterday at that bar in California. Like it. Oh, and then like in my hometown, there was a shooting at a really nice like mall or like a movie theater where typically gun violence is, I hate to say it, is typically contained in like kind of the lower income, ghetto, poor, gang related neighborhoods. It was like the first time it was kind of not like that's like all gun and Second Amendment stuff I'd like be interested in talking about and going through my political beliefs and stuff like that. Hold on. Throat was getting dry. But a lot of stuff I could talk about that. I could talk about how like I've transitioned to being like, I'd say like a hardcore conservative because mom and dad were like that, which a lot of people do. And then you go to college and you turn to a liberal. I'm not the farthest thing from a liberal because I'm no longer diehard conservative, but how I've become much more like libertarian, and if it doesn't affect me or others, then you should be allowed to do it. Has like become the main point or the main like theme of my beliefs and trying to stay consistent across the board and not bleeding this because of just because that's a unique situation, I guess, like, and then this situation's perfectly fine. Like, I'll give an example quickly with the Democrats. How they talk about global warming. I think global warming is real. It's kind of funny that people don't. I've got family members who don't think it's real. I'm just like, that's retarded. Anyways, so they kind of, I would say, like, they pride themselves. This is a very common inconsistency. A lot of people point out that they're the party of science, global warming and all this, but then they want to have a boy be able to be classified as a girl and believe us to be true. Oh, no, it's a psychology thing. Like, no, that's against science. He's a boy. I'm a boy. I can't say I want to be a girl, so you have to call me a girl now. One, you can't force me to do things, and that's another thing, whole libertarian thing. I don't know if I'm getting that right or wrong, but people shouldn't be able to force me to do things. But, so the contradiction that they believe that global warming is a thing. They also believe a boy can be a girl and a girl can be a boy. And then, so like that's like an inconsistency, and the right and the left have huge amounts of them. I remember when people are shaming Obama for he was using the IRS for the thing was all these conservative grassroots Tea Party movements whatever were using. Obama was targeting him through the IRS, which is horrible if it was true. I don't know if they ever got true. Like, it really, there's no way you could really prove it. No, you just got selected oddly. But Republicans and conservatives were pissed. But no one's raising an eyebrow on the conservative side about Stormy Daniels touching that guy's butt in a strip club and then getting thrown in jail. Do you think that wasn't a witch hunt for getting back at her for, like, coming out that President Trump did the dirty with her, for lack of a better term? Like, no, like, and like, I know a lot of conservatives would be like, oh, well, she broke the law. In Ohio, they can't touch people in those establishments. That is great. Bigger and more important laws are broken every day of the year. And I'd much rather police resources trying to, like, figure that out. And they're just going to turn a blind eye to Stormy. But Obama and the IRS, I think they're both shitty. You could say one's shittier than the other, vice versa, whatever. but just to see the complete inconsistency. Sorry, I'm going on a ramble about politics, and then like with the Brett Kavanaugh thing that just happened, good and bad on both sides, and then to see like stuff that doesn't get talked about at all. Uh, just quick story. One of the things I want to talk about is CBRE. It's giant commercial real estate. I have a guy's card. I was looking to get a job there, but they're massive. The competition to get in is insane. But anyways, CBRE. I don't know what it stands for. It's whatever. But the United States Postal Service is downsizing. They're trying to get rid of a bunch of offices. Who has the right to sell them? CBRE got the right to sell those properties. You think, oh wow, that's a big company. What you don't know is Dianne Feinstein, the one who handled the Brett Kavanaugh, and somehow the Dr. Ford story got leaked, and Dr. Ford didn't leak it, and Dianne Feinstein, I'm probably pronouncing her name wrong, I'm horrible at names, also said she didn't leak it. One of them is lying, and one of them, I could easily say, Dianne Feinstein, you're the one who leaked it. But you can't fess up, because then that's wrong, and then she'd know. Anyways, not a big fan of Dianne Feinstein. The reason CBRE got that contract, or made something that helped it, was Dianne Feinstein's husband. His last name is Plum. He owns some type of financially based business. It's Some and So Partners. They own a huge portion of the stock of CBRE, and he also sits on the board of CBRE. No one's talking about really the connection between Dianne Feinstein and how CBRE got the ability to sell the postal office. So you say, you can choke it up and be like, no, that's business connections, blah, blah, and I agree with that. Connections are true. But at that one point, I'd like the American public to be informed, hey, you could say a potential factor, the reason they got this deal, because there's other very large commercial real estate companies that could easily handle the transactions of it and all that. No one's talking about it. Nobody. And that to me is really upsetting. Oh, then people say, oh, CBRE, it's 5% of their income for this year. 5% of a huge number is still a very big number, and I'm not good with large numbers, even though I'm a finance major. I'm not up to date or what CBRE annual income is or revenue for the years, but 5% of it, I know it's north of a bunch of $1 million, which means it's a lot of money. So commission on that, and it's a big number. Even if it's 5%, if a big business can increase their revenue by 5%, that's a nice little jump. And some of those properties are probably in very keen locations that are very urban around them, and people are trying to get in there and stuff like that. So I can definitely see them making a pretty penny off this. What ticks me off is nobody's even talking about it. It's not in the news. It's not in any of this. No one cares about it. No one. What? Am I the only one? Hey, I think this is something we should look in and talk about. And situations like that have popped up all over the place. Same thing with Republicans. If you ever want to look at Jeb Bush's story, also who was the guy who shot his friend while they were bird hunting, and his friend apologized? Jeb Bush's daughter. Oh, the list goes on and on and on. And people say, oh, what were the founding fathers? I could never imagine the founding. They probably got away with some dirty stuff too. They're higher class. That's probably gone out through history. They would look back and be like, holy cow, this is shady. From my understanding, politicians shouldn't have gotten ever paid, and it was supposed to be a part-time job. Now it's a full-time career, and once you're in, you've made it. You look at the net worth of some of these people, you're like, oh, Hillary Clinton, you don't got to look long to see some shady shit there. There's been a lot of people who have just suicide, car accident, they'll never get proven, and then yet you still have people who are so tribal. I had the friend who campaigned said Hillary Clinton was the most experienced person to ever run for the presidency, and I was like, that's probably true. She's held a lot of political office positions. Also, that kind of disqualifies her in mine, because as I get older, I see how scummy these people are. Rick Scott and that whole water issue with the Lake Okeechobee, oh God, what's the name of the show? It's a YouTube show. It's the Jim Dore Show. Look at his 20-minute video on it. Oh my gosh. They show a Twitter thing of people come to this a restaurant Rick Scott's having. At the time he was the governor, now he's a senator if the recount doesn't go through or whatever. And no to Jeb Bush, or screaming and yelling and chanting against him. Well, what they do is he has his people come out with the Rick Scott little like plastic banners, and as Rick Scott comes out, they're holding it, they're smiling, they're going like that. So when people take pictures of the news, if you don't read the article, or if you just look quickly at it, you think, oh wow, look at all of Rick Scott's followers. They're like screaming, they're holding all these posters, because no, those are people he's paying on his campaign trail. So if a picture's taken real quick, and someone only sees a picture, it looks like it's a good like thing for Rick Scott, and so you wonder, what's the line between propaganda and news? I mean, and is it propaganda because he's trying to make the best out of a bad situation? You don't have to do a lot of research to realize that Rick Scott really dropped the ball on this whole water thing, or water release program with the Lake Okeechobee and the rivers that release it down to the coast, when it really should just go south into the Everglades. Well, car alarm's going off, so I apologize. I hope it's not mine. I'm going to check real quick, actually. Not my car, but the one next to it. Oh, there it goes. But he really messed it up. There was like 353 laboratories that would test the water to make sure it was clean, and through his term it was got cut down to 115, and they had the worst year of enforcement. Like Jim Dorshow does a much better job of going through the facts and like pinning them basically. And you see him like, what is propaganda? Like, is that propaganda? We always talk about Joseph Goebbels. I think that's how you pronounce it. Was Hitler's like minister of propaganda. And the great quote my dad always told me is, if you tell a big enough lie for a long enough time, it becomes truth. And ain't that true? Like, I think about it. These books and history, like, maybe that's the way it down, but you're only really hearing it from the losing side. So yet again, I want a little political rant. Things like that, I feel like I'd probably beforehand write a couple notes on like, this is the progression of my thoughts and why I think this is not true, but a good way to look at it. And I don't think a lot of people are looking at it because they're just so conditioned to look at it, and they're Democratic, or they're Democrat or Republican way of thinking. And the great analogy or metaphor is like, you think about, someone told me that the Grand Canyon was formed because a river was going over it, and soon it just finally just cuts down so deep, and you've got this huge canyon and all that. I feel like that's how you think with like, not literally, but like all these nerve receptors in your brain, and past, if you keep thinking one way, this way, like this way, it's such a habit and so ingrained, and someone shows you proof that no, it's really should be thought about this way, and like this is the truth, you just continue to keep thinking this way, because that's the only thing you know, and you're so used to it. And so then I wonder how, like, I've had a big awakening. I know that sounds very cocky, and not to mean cocky, but we took an ethics class. A good friend's guy who was my teacher is the owner of that yoga studio. Very enlightened, great guy. Love him to death. He like ripped me a couple new buttholes when we were like not arguing hatefully, but I was like, I made good points. He made good points, but I could really see where he was right in some areas and a little off on other things. But overall, his way of thinking and doing was just much better than what the average person would do, what Democrat, Republican would do. And the thing that was different about him though was the way he did it. You know, there's teachers who, have to get that God complex, and some people say he kind of went off and talked about it, like acted like he had that God complex where his ego was, his personality was in some sense because he was higher and talking down on all these students. Sometimes it kind of maybe could be interpreted that way, but he was so sensitive and tender and carefully saying what he meant to say, and his logic walking us through it. And that's what really, it wasn't like some guy coming at you, hitting you over the head with the Bible saying, you need to believe. He was just kind of calm, collected on a lot of days, and he'd walk us through, and I was like, wow. And so going to his yoga studio and going to some of his bi-weekly talks, I was like, dang, this guy he's a thinker. It's not just 2 + 2 is 4. He makes sure it's really 2 and 2. He's really smart, masters from like Purdue or something like that, and it's just the way he would go. He was just so. He like destroyed a lot of kids in arguments. Sometimes me and him went at it, not like in a hurtful way. I was like, no, I think it's true because this. He's like, I think this is discredited a little bit because of this and this, but like, it was never like it was just a teacher who's like, oh, college professors have a college professors have a stigma of being very liberal. I don't know if he was liberal or Democratic or liberal or conservative. He was in the Marines or he was in the Army. He was into motorcycle racing. He has a yoga studio. And so he was all over the board. And that's one thing I liked about him. I feel like so many people get so stuck in like an image. Oh, I'm a country guy. I'm a football jock. Oh, I'm like a yoga person, or I'm the very religious types, or the sorority, the party types, and that's their defining thing. And he was just all over the board, and I really liked that. He was very like spiritual and light in the way he talked about things. You could tell that this had been an interest of, like, spirituality and religion had been an interest of his whole life. It's not one of the preachers that, 10 years ago I beat alcoholism and I knew I only beat it through God. Well, I'm really glad. I think a lot of these people have changed. Some of them aren't. Some of them use it and whatnot. But you've only had an interest in this for 10 years. I'd much rather, but your story sells good. The grace of God saved me, so forth, etc. But you've only really been going at it 10 years and thinking about it for like 10 years. And you only did it out of necessity to save your life, or you were fearful, you were finally, like, people look at you poorly. For whatever reason, you changed. And I hope you do change, and God bless you. I'm glad you did. But that sells a lot better than someone saying, when I was a young kid, I always just enjoyed reading. And religion and kind of thinking about, like, big, macro, universal questions, like, where do we go after, has just really been kind of what I've been called to ever since I can remember early on. That story doesn't sell. People say, oh, what a nerd, that guy's boring. But if someone says, oh my gosh, man, I was on death's doorstep, I was definitely going to go to hell, I was doing drugs, I was hooking up with prostitutes and paying for sex, or same thing, doing that, I was going to die. But then the Lord, I heard him one day, he came down and he touched, like, and you say it a lot better. People get the goosebumps, it's like, wow. And that's good. I hope a lot of these people do change. Of course, some don't, There's always stories, people who come from backgrounds like that, who get this big following, and they get all this like power from their following, and then you find out they've been cheating on their wife for so long, or they get caught with like kiddie porn or something like that. And so the point I'm making is that I could, talk a lot about yoga, and that's what I'm trying to do more in my life, I guess. I was a big football jock for a while. I played 1 year in college. But now, I have one of those like yoga tapestries, and then right over I have a black flag that says Malone Labette, which is Greece for come and take it. And then I have a fish tank that I just got, really pretty, like it. Might do a video on that. Not really, these are all going to be talking. Next to my ukulele. Then I've got a flag when I caught my first sailfish, and everybody like signed it. I've got a bunch of pictures, a podcast, like the different, I'm really into outdoorsy stuff. Like, I'm trying to expand myself and not just be like, how, that kid's from, out in the boondocks. I'm not really out from the boondocks. I'm not very country in my background, even though I'm wearing a country hat. I've been hunting before and killed a couple animals, and I enjoy that. But I don't want to be like, you've got those people, he was born in that region, so he's going to be like that. And for most people, they kind of fit those main stereotypes, like, he likes trucks, he's a Republican, he dips, and he likes drinking his beer, and he likes barbecue, and, like, I understand some things are going to be cultural and style are going to be cultural and regional, but thinking shouldn't be that way. And I wanted to shoot for 20 minutes. It's 38:30 right now. And that's a whole nother topic about, like, originality of thoughts. How many things do I think about are really original? Am I only liking camouflage because my parents were kind of Republican and conservatives, and they typically support the military, and the military has, like, camouflage, and is that why I'm, like, drawn to that? I'd probably say in some sense, yeah. Also, maybe now I like it, and so you get to that point. Do I really like this because Tommy likes it, or because Tommy was told to like this way back when in his childhood, and also that's what all the people in his tribe or way of thinking tell him to dress like and look like, and his likes and preferences. And that I think is where yoga is really good. It helps, like, divide those. So, on that note, I'm going to try and do these once a week. I'll probably have, this one I've covered a lot. But, thank you for listening. I've had no views, no subscriptions this entire time. That's perfectly fine. Maybe one day I'll just have millions of them like Joe Rogan, and this is all I'll do for life. And also, I forgot a friend I'd be really interested in, like, doing this with, but it was kind of, like, slow. Love him to death. Really good friend. Like, one of the guys who's like paints, very creative, and like one of the guys I'm like drawn to. I was a big jock in high school, football player. He was into like painting. He still paints, and like me and him vibe, even though we're like on different sides of the spectrum. I would be really down to like bring him on, I guess, for lack of a better word, because he's a really cool dude. And just in general, I would be so down to have guests and eventually have better equipment. But money, baby, college and stuff like that, and I would really be down once in a while to have guests because it is nice to sit here and just vent and ramble and talk. But sometimes it might be a while before, like longer than a week, because you kind of have to see some things and like I could talk a lot more in depth about a lot of these things, but eventually I'll probably run out of things to talk about ahead of time or think about because I kind of came into, hey, I just want to introduce what the Dazed, Confused, and Educated would be about, and then that snowballed and snowballed and snowballed. Thought about a couple of these like ideas beforehand, and then they just really snowball. But after a while, I'll probably have trouble just thinking about things in general, so I'll kind of need someone for stimuli, and also people have their own opinions, and like I said, I like to sit down and vibe and talk to people. So yeah, I would really be down to like do this whole thing with him, but I'm slightly more into politics, like a good bit more in politics than him, and I think this would kind of be somewhat political heavy, and also like crazy trippy thoughts or things I see online and all that. So worst come to worst, we'll just like make another one, do one with me and him. So I look forward to hearing from, or I look forward to making another one of these in a week. Thank you. All right, how do I stop this? All right, do I just hit the exit? I think I hit the exit. Are you sure you want to stop streaming? All right, now I figured it out. Thank you.